Coming live to you from St. Augustine Beach, Florida, it's time for RecruiterCast Live. In today's talent landscape, you need to be one step ahead of your competition. Whether you're a recruiter, hiring manager, or candidate, this is the show for you. Join Dave Webb, lifelong entrepreneur, big data expert, and staffing aficionado, alongside recruiting industry vet John Purton, as they talk everything recruiting. Join our live stream now on Twitch or YouTube to interact with our panel. From entrepreneurial journeys to job descriptions to the tech that will help you land top talent, this is RecruiterCast. If you want to learn about the latest trends, then this is the show for you. Live every Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. You're listening to RecruiterCast Live. Now here's your hosts, Dave Webb and John Purton.
Welcome to RecruiterCast Live, episode number 85. I'm your host, David Webb, and I'm joined today by my co-host, John Purton, as you all know. Say to John.
Hello, Dave.
Chat, let us know if audio is good. We got a little bit of different configuration today. Hey, Kaylee. Hey, Shani Lee. And thank you, Marcia, for the follow. Appreciate that. We are at 44. I know it says 45 on the screen. And this handsome gentleman at the end of the table is Mr. Ben Platt. He's going to be our guest today.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
Yes. Kaylee says good to go. Kaylee, let us know if you got audio on all three of us. I appreciate that. Kaylee's our moderator. If you have any questions that you'd like to send our way, just put them right in the chat, and Kaylee will prioritize those for us. And if you're a new viewer, we do appreciate you clicking that little outline heart button and making it fill in and being a follower. We get to 50 followers. We get Twitch affiliate status. Wow, the world just opens up.
Well, then the doors come off, and then we just start throwing freebies out there, giveaways, sweepstakes,
T-shirt cannons,
possibly. I mean, wait, is that for real? Like, you would really get us a T-shirt cannon if we get to 50?
I don't think it would be very much fun in here with the three of us.
I mean,
I
it could
disagree.
be fun for me. I think it could be fun for me.
We could shoot them off the balcony at people going into the bank.
Yeah, random people.
At least once, and then cops get involved and start asking questions.
It's just like high school.
Yeah.
Wait,
I feel like this is a George Carlin bit.
Might be.
About auto accidents.
Man.
All right. So, like I said, today is a special. We have special guest Ben Platt with us. Ben is with Tembo CPAs. He is a entrepreneurial focused accounting firm located in St. Augustine, Florida. And Ben's been a friend and a colleague of mine for a long time. And there's a lot that we could talk about today on sharing his path to becoming a CPA. And that kind of leads to our new content segment called Career Paths. So from time to time, we'll have professionals on. They can talk about where they are at in their career and how we got there, how they got there, and hopefully people thinking about going into a career as a CPA or a programmer or you name it, give us some recommendations and we'll have some people on. They can watch the video on demand on YouTube and say, whoa, that's not at all what I thought it was going to be. Maybe I should rethink my life decisions, or that sounds great. I didn't think of these things. I need to do some better preparation. So that's just to kind of set the stage for today. Some real quick housekeeping, and then we'll get right into it. We are live every Thursday at 1 p.m. And for the next foreseeable future, for the next few weeks, we're going to be live on probably like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday for at least an hour, hitting that 8-hour Twitch benchmark that we're trying to hit for the affiliate status. If you didn't see John's segment on Tuesday on how to do sourcing, I encourage you to watch it on YouTube or video on demand on Twitch.
It was amazing.
And it was pretty amazing until the internet went out. But then we recovered, and then you sounded like a chipmunk, and everyone had to hit refresh on Twitch.
Which is fine. I mean, that's okay. The only disappointment, the only bitter disappointment from Tuesday's live stream was that I didn't get to tell the Diet Coke story. So you're going to have to tune in next Tuesday to hear the Diet Coke story.
Okay.
It's huge. It's a game changer. It will change people's perception on recruiting.
As long as I'm not like the punchline.
You're not.
That's
not
cool.
All.
Okay.
Not at all.
Because you do not have my permission.
No,
to use me in the Diet Coke story.
I never. I would never.
Is it as good as the moth joke?
That's
by the late great Norm.
That's a. First of all, no,
okay.
Nothing can
Just
be.
Wanted to give you a little
the
reality
delivery
check
on
there.
that was amazing.
Yes.
I feel like I was probably 85% on it though.
Okay.
Like I drew it out I was aiming for content. I was trying to do an hour solo.
Okay.
Just in here by myself, trying to make the interwebs work and be entertaining. But no, so tune in next week.
Okay.
You'll get the full Diet Coke story.
Okay.
It's amazing.
So we are always live on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And then if you want to forward this to some of your friends, we will be audio only if they're want to listen to us while they're driving. Apple, Spotify, all the major platforms. It's 2021. If you don't know how to find a podcast by now, I gotta steer you toward a search engine.
Yeah, you're on a flip phone.
Yeah. We're not going to chew your food for you, as some people like to say that I admire.
Can't do it.
All right, so Mr. Platt.
Yes, sir.
How are you today, sir?
I'm excellent. It's happy to be here.
Yeah, you're back in town after a little bit of a trip.
We've had a couple of trips, yeah.
So I guess let's start off. We kind of talked about that you are a CPA. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these things. You are a certified public accountant.
I am, yes.
You have started your own business.
Yes,
that
many
makes
times.
you an entrepreneur by extension.
Yes.
And so just kind of like tell us a little bit about what you do, whether you consider yourself more of a CPA or an entrepreneur, or how that mixes together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a broad perspective, I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
The CPA business has been at the heart and soul of everything that I've done from an entrepreneurial perspective. People don't always equate CPAs with entrepreneurs because a lot of CPAs are pretty conservative from a philosophical perspective. I am not one of those CPAs.
Okay.
Most people who meet me always say, "You're not like any other CPA I've ever met before."
Yeah, you forgot your tie.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's your bow tie, man?
I burned all ties.
Good for you.
Nice.
Good for you.
Metaphorically and literally.
And literally, yes, absolutely. So I got into entrepreneurship actually before I got into the CPA business. So, I went to Flagler College.
Okay.
And a good friend of mine, roommate of mine, and probably one of my best friends right now, a guy named Jim Craig, and I started a little discount card called, creatively, The Card.
Brilliant.
And
keep it simple.
Hold on.
And we
The Card.
The Card.
Is hold on one second.
Let's see.
I just want to verify.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Is this the card?
That is the card. Yeah, and that's Jim. That's Jim on the left, and that's me on the right. And now we probably look like the people who ate those kids, because I think we weigh about twice as much as we did then.
So a little bit of reference here. What year is this?
That would have been 1995.
Okay.
Yeah, 1995. We started the card. We went around town getting all these different businesses to like St. George's Tavern to do like, buy one get two free, or buy one get one free type of discounts, or Subway or whatever. And then we sold it to all the unsuspecting freshmen at Flagler College for $10 a piece. And
perfect.
It kept us in beer and pizza the whole semester. It was brilliant.
I love it.
Competing with Capital One.
Exactly.
For card distribution to the unsuspecting freshmen.
To the unsuspecting. That's right.
So you literally, you came up with the affiliate program before there was an affiliate program.
It was popular. That's
well
right.
played, sir.
Yeah,
well played.
Yeah, and I have to give Jim Craig a lot of the credit on that, because that was his idea. I just kind of helped him get it implemented, and he had seen it. I think his older sister, at her college, and was like, "They did it there. We should do it here." And so we did.
See an opportunity, jump on it.
Yeah. So then I was at Flagler for accounting, and I was looking for a job. I went to lots of different places trying to find a job in the summer of '95, actually, and happened upon a tiny little CPA firm called Ken Kresge CPA.
Okay.
I walked in. The guy who walked up to me was a guy I had gone to Flagler with, a guy named Ed Painvin. And I said, "Ed, what are you doing here?" He said, "I work here." "What are you doing here?" I said, "I want to work here." And he said, "Well, your timing is great, because I'm going to MBA school and we need to hire somebody." And honestly, like, that was it. That was the interview. I started working there like 2 months later, and I didn't really intend to be in public accounting when I went to school for accounting.
Okay.
But that's what the job that I found was, and then I really fell in love with it. Mostly, there's two things, like, for people who are considering accounting, right? The two things, or public accounting in particular, the two things that I think really resonated with me is, one thing is that, you're doing something different every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these different projects and all these different clients, and you do not walk into the door and do the same thing that you did yesterday. It's always something different.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that you're or at least I found how much I liked working with entrepreneurs, right? And I had some experiences early on where I was working with CFOs of bigger companies, not the owners of the companies, but like somebody who had been hired to be the CFO. And there's a big difference between working for, like, as a consultant, working with someone who works for the company as opposed to working with the person who owns the company, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs have this passion, right? And this energy and this enthusiasm, and they're super stoked about the thing that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And being connected with that is, I mean, to me, it's like everything, you know, I mean,
Right.
that's the piece that I love in all of it. And so like 10 or 15 years ago, I kind of made a conscious decision that I want to work with entrepreneurs, right? Because that's where all the good energy is coming from.
Right.
And
So the difference being working directly with the entrepreneur versus working with a staff accountant at a larger company.
yeah,
There's
I
not
mean,
the same.
well, and a lot of people they go the Big Four route, right? And they go work for Price Waterhouse or, you know, one of these big Four CPA firms, which, you know, I don't want to take anything away from that because there's excellent experience to be had there. But when you go work for that firm, those clients that you're working on, like you're not working with the owner of Dell or CSX
Right.
or
Right.
whatever, right?
You're performing a function.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
working with people who work in those companies and you're doing a job and you're learning some skills and it's all good. But you don't get the energy, you know, that you get from working with entrepreneurs.
So working with entrepreneurial is, whoa, hey,
Wow.
look at that. That just happened.
Paige White, thank you for the follow. We
Thanks, Paige
appreciate
White.
it.
All right.
So I imagine that having to
It might be a lot louder for us than it is for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was volume 12, just so you guys know.
Yeah, no, it wasn't too disruptive. It was jarring. Maybe.
It's just like a little caffeine boost.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
So I imagine working with entrepreneurs, you have to kind of be like a mile wide and an inch deep, and you have to like learn all kinds of industries and so what's that like? Where you have to kind of give yourself a crash course on new businesses all the time?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, I think, and honestly, I think it's true for people who work in public accounting in general, right? So, I mean, if you're working for any kind of a CPA firm and you're working on tax or you're working on audit, you really have to be a generalist first, right? You got to know a whole lot about, you know, or actually, I guess you need to know a little about a whole lot of things.
Stuff. Yeah.
And there is a very large body of knowledge in the accounting world that you have to learn in the very beginning. So those first few years, right? 3 to 5 years or 3 to 7 years, it's just absorption. I mean, you're just absorbing and absorbing and absorbing and, you know, learning these different rules in these different situations, and there's exceptions for everything. And, you know, both of you have had experience with the Internal Revenue Code in one form or another. I know you and I have had lots of conversations about it. And, you know, it's just a morass of questions, right? And exceptions. And, you know, this is the rule in this case, but not in this case. And so, you know, you're just constantly trying to absorb all of that. And then figure out how does it apply to each client situation, right? So like, what is this client doing? What are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? And then, you know, what tools can I bring out of the tool bag to apply to that situation? And it takes time. You know, I mean, it takes a good 5 to 10 years to really get good at doing that.
Yeah, I can't imagine memorizing all that stuff. So do you guys have like a kind of like a knowledge base that you can go to so that you don't have to have all that stuff memorized? Or, you know, like there's law databases, there's, you know, in programming, we have Stack Overflow or manuals.
We have, I would say like maybe 3 or 4 significant sources of knowledge, right? I mean, the first one is one that you've probably both heard of. I don't know if you've heard of Google. Are you familiar with that?
I have.
We don't use it anymore, but we've heard of it.
We know of it.
We've
we're
boycotted
familiar.
it.
Yeah.
Search engines for sure. You know, there's good information there. We have, research databases that we subscribe to and pay a lot of money for. And that gets us, there's a lot of, so there's like always primary source information or research, and then secondary, which is the editorial, side of it. What does this actually mean, right? So Congress creates these laws, and then you have all the people who interpret it. So we have access to all of that. We've developed our own. Like for me, I kind of look at it like almost like football, right? So we're going to run a play. So you have to have all these different you have to have a book of plays. And so we've developed that list. And for me, since I'm focused on tax and not audit, it's all tax minimization strategies, right? So how do we help clients minimize tax, free up money for them to do something else, right? Whatever their other goals are. And so we have a long list of those kinds of plays. And then you just have to see what situation you're in with clients to figure out which play to run.
Okay.
And,
This sounds a million times more consultative and more like being almost like a business partner as opposed to just doing math.
For
right?
sure.
Like I know that sounds rudimentary, but I'm a dumb recruiter. So, when I see CPA, I'm like, oh, this person must be great at math. But then hearing you talk about this, it's almost like you're an extension of the business and a business partner.
Yeah. And I think it's a common misconception that, accountants have this like, they're very good at math.
Sure.
Like the most complicated math we do is multiplying income by 40% to figure out what tax is.
I can
or
do
whatever.
that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not super complicated math. I mean, we are good at Excel and all those kinds of things you have to be. But I think you're right. It's the relationship that you form with people and getting to know what they're trying to accomplish and then figuring out their situation and the rules that apply and helping them navigate all of that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I have some questions about that day that you walked into the accountant's office and got your first job in 1995.
Okay.
But before we go there,
All right.
what was the first job you ever had? How old were you? Was it legit? Like, were child labor laws broken? How much did you get paid? Did you get paid in candy or cash?
And it's okay if
we
they
want
were.
we
We've all
want
been
we
there.
want these details, and the statute of limitation is up.
It's up.
Okay. I
You're
mean,
clear.
this is not one that you would guess.
Okay.
Because well, I guess I did when I was younger, like early teens, babysitting and that kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But the real first job I had, I think I was 16, and we lived in north central Florida, near a little north of Lake City, and
Where's that? Jasper?
north of Jasper.
Okay.
Is actually exactly where we lived. I don't know how
Well, there's
you know
only
Jasper
one
and don't know Lake City.
because Lake City's almost Georgia. There's only like one
Yeah.
place,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
between the two. Okay.
Right. So I wanted to get a job, and a buddy of mine said, you should come work in the tobacco fields with us this summer.
Sounds great.
And I was like, I
Delightful.
don't have any other options, so let's go do it. And so I was the stacker of tobacco leaves. So they would actually bring us the tobacco from the farm,
Okay.
from the field. They bring it to us in front of the barn. I was one of the two guys who would grab it out of the trailer, put it on this table. We would spin it around. These other two guys would put this rack with spikes through it and then put it up in the barn to dry. And
Okay.
that's what I did for 3 months. I got nicotine poisoning through my skin.
Really?
Yeah.
So what is nicotine poisoning like?
It's like just being deathly ill. Yeah, for a week.
Did anyone tell you to wear long sleeves, or
No.
was it just like
And it was 100 degrees and nobody was wearing even a shirt.
And it was at that moment that Ben decided to go to college.
That's right.
That's exactly
So
what
the
happened.
truth is, yeah. I mean, when I had these 2 or 3 jobs. Like I helped one summer. I moved appliances for Sears, right? Installed appliances.
Dreadful.
Super hot, physical labor. The summer after I graduated high school, I worked construction. On top of roofs, putting on roofs, and I definitely came to the conclusion that I wanted a job that involved air conditioning.
yes?
Yeah.
Right. I had to
Yeah.
have that, and so I was very motivated in college.
Yeah, I can imagine. Dave's roofed houses. I've roofed houses. I've worked in a bread factory. What was the other horrible job you had?
Pulpwood, cutting
Pulpwood. That's
Yeah,
right.
I've done that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a theme here. Like I see a lot of old dudes who used to do a lot of manual
I feel
labor
like-
and kind of migrated away
I
from that.
feel like the state tried to turn us into like agricultural country boys before we knew better, and we beat the system.
not having it.
Yeah.
Just not having it.
I mean,
tobacco.
did people
fields.
drive you into corn picking, being from Nebraska?
No. So Jenny Lou did that. Jenny Lou lived out in the middle of Nebraska, but I was in the big city of Omaha,
Okay.
where we're a little bit more refined there with our 400,000 folks and the College World Series. I mean, we don't.
I was just there this summer. I liked Omaha. It was nice.
It's a fine place to visit.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. Not live, but visit.
It's a fine place to visit. I
agree.
recommend everyone visit once.
Yeah.
But no. So yeah, I did see some friends doing agriculture in Nebraska, but mostly I did roofing. I worked in a beer distribution plant where I was taking loose cans of beer and putting them into 12 packs and then hot gluing them all day long, which was awesome. But no, I never worked in a cornfield, although I would have. Push came to shove, I would have.
I'm sure.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So you're in Jasper. You're stacking tobacco leaves.
Stacking tobacco.
Stacking tobacco.
Stacking the backy.
I was not expecting that
No.
at all.
No.
All right. You move some appliances, and then you graduate from high school. And Flagler, you go straight to Flagler?
I went straight to Flagler.
Okay. So undergrad at Flagler.
Yep.
And then what year did you start school?
93.
Okay. So 2 years in, got tired of not being able to afford things because you were a broke college kid and
Yeah.
decided to start seeking money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Had to go find some
I know
money
the
and wanted
story.
experience, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I wanted to do something in finance. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I just wanted something on the resume that had something to do with it.
So your social media manager sent us one other photo. And I got to admit, you look younger in this one than in the first one. So I need to know what job this is.
So
What is this?
This is actually my this was an unpaid position, so I don't actually classify this as a first job or entrepreneurship, but I did found the high school store
Okay.
at Hamilton County High School, and so we had the Trojan campus store, and
All right.
yeah, so that's me running the store, and I had my 12-column ledger that I kept track of all the inventory, you know, and I sold my pencils and erasers, and yeah, I mean, we made a small killing there.
Very
like
advanced inventory management system.
Fundraising for the school.
Right? Yeah, I don't even actually remember where the money went. It didn't go to me. I guess it went to the school. I don't know.
And there's something you want to hear every CPA. say.
Right. I wasn't a CPA yet.
Yes, this drove him to the accountability of the.
That's right.
It's
of
perfect.
the
It's
thing.
perfect.
All right. Well, I promise that's all we have as far as old photos go. Unless you have some in your wallet you want to break out.
I don't think so.
All right. So, So you're doing the card at Flagler a couple years in. I guess you got a couple more years. So you got the job at the CPA office while you were still in
Yeah,
school.
I was a junior
before you even. Okay. And so what can you do in a CPA office before you have a college degree or a certified public accountant?
Yeah, great question.
Certification.
Yeah, I mean, and even in our current firm, we love hiring juniors and seniors, primarily juniors actually, because it gives you like a year and a half or so of getting to know somebody and them getting to know the work before you really make a decision on bringing them on full time. But for back then, you know, I did a whole lot of just like bookkeeping. You know, back in those days, people would bring you their check stubs and their bank statements, and you would like, you know, put it all into the computer and
Right.
you know, classify it all and, you know, create financial statements, and then we would give the clients the financial statements. And I think, you know, I was talking about the two things that I really like about this profession. Maybe the third is the fact that we get to know how so many businesses work,
Okay.
right? Like how does, I can tell you how so many businesses work, you know, because I've just seen them all. And actually the question that you should ask me at some point in this interview is if
Okay.
you could go back and do it all over again, what would you do?
I will.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I've got an idea on that. But yeah, I mean, so I did a whole bunch of that. I mean, funny story. So when I think this is in 98 or 99 or maybe 97 actually. So I think maybe I was just right out of college or something. I can't remember the exact timing, but I got this virus, and it turned into this weird blood disorder where my the white blood cells or antibodies in my blood actually attacked my platelets, and it wiped out all of my platelets in my blood, and I had a nosebleed
Awesome.
that would not stop bleeding. Right.
Okay.
Ended up in the hospital. Ended up at Baptist for like a week, and you know, but none of this wasn't like, as long as I didn't get in a car wreck or something, it wasn't
Right.
really life threatening, and I didn't feel bad either. You know, I mean, it was just a weird thing.
Okay.
It was in the middle of tax season. It was like early March, late February. And so Ken Kresge, the guy who I was working for at the time, he said, how you feeling? And I said, I'm feeling pretty good. He was like, okay. Yeah, it's tax season, you know? I'm like, yeah, I know. I'll be back as soon as I get out of the hospital, I promise. He was like, okay, well, I'll come up and visit you. I was like, all right, that's cool. So he shows up that afternoon with a milk carton full of tax returns and a laptop that ran at about, you know, like 1 mile an hour.
Right.
And so I sat there in the hospital for 3 days doing tax returns.
He brought the AOL disc in
That's
so
right.
he could get on the internet. So a couple of things about that. Number one, kudos to you for just grinding it out in the hospital.
That's
and
what I
just,
did.
And getting past the deadline.
That's what I did.
And I got to give Ken some props. Like, hey, I mean, if you ain't dying, you could still work.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah.
he's solving problems. I appreciate him.
He saw an
adhering to-
opportunity and went for it.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. Way to go, Ken.
He's always said, I've got an opportunity for greatness. That's what he'd always say to us, you know, hey, I got an opportunity for greatness, which is not something you ever wanted to volunteer for.
Because that meant he
It was
needed
gonna
you to
be
do
work.
a lot of stuff
Yeah, it was
in a
gonna be
short
work.
amount of time.
Yeah, that's right.
I respect that. I'm gonna have to adopt that myself.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So as part of learning about how all businesses that you work for work, how often do you get to take a lesson learned from one of your clients and suggest it to another one who's having a similar problem?
Yeah. I would say quite often.
Okay.
I think there are platform things like how do companies do their accounting, what platforms do they use and what are the processes? Those kinds of things, I think, we share that information a lot and help clients do those things better. Some of the tax minimization strategies, there are things that have worked for some clients that will work for other clients. And so you're just basically looking for the similar facts and circumstances and client goals to put those into play. And I think, part of what we actually, so we do this thing in our firm called Jifunzi, which means learn in Swahili. We have this whole Swahili African theme going with Tembo. Because I spent some time there. We can chat about that.
That's the next question.
Okay.
It really was. Yeah. If we were like, dude, spoiler
No,
alert.
I won't go there. But Jifunzi means learn. And so we do this every Thursday. We have this learning session. And sometimes it's very much programmed and we know what we're talking about, what we're training on. Mm-hmm. And other days it's just what did you learn? Mm-hmm. And, I think it's created this kind of whole learning environment. And last week I was talking to them about being a lifelong learner, right? Having this constant mindset of wanting to learn. And when you are engaging with clients and basically saying yes to whatever those opportunities are, even though it's not necessarily something that you're good at or you have expertise in, you're going to learn a lot through it,
Yeah.
And, everybody I think knows that you learn a lot more from your failures than you do your successes. And I've certainly had lots of those over the years and learned a lot from those. But you can then take those things that you learn and then figure out how to apply them in other situations with other clients or, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and I think when someone learns when someone figures out, I'll talk about myself. Not that way. When I figured out how valuable the failures were, that was a turning point as an entrepreneur, right? And probably as a person too,
yeah.
Right? Because you go from frustration to opportunity,
right?
And I know working with you, it's been great to say, hey, why don't you try this?
Yeah.
Or let's look at it this way, and it's a problem solving, right? Exercise.
It is.
There's more than one path to the tax return being done and signed, and you just kind of explore all of them, compare it to your short-term goals, your long-term goals, and it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. I think
it's very customized.
Yeah. Do people still think that you do tax returns if you walk into the HR block office? You know what I'm saying? People still think that I fix computers with a screwdriver.
Right.
And I'm I kind of haven't done that in 25 years.
Right. Yeah. No, I think for the most part, I mean, we approach client relationships from a team perspective, right? And we've got great people on the team, and so I don't think that most people think that I'm still doing the tax returns. I'm still very much reviewing the tax returns and making sure that we get the right result, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm not punching the numbers in the system anymore.
Good for you.
Yeah. So we talk. So you hire people still in school, and is kind of the tax return kind of maybe an analog is architecture, where a draftsman might draw up an initial drawing, an architect reviews it to make sure it meets specs, its aesthetics, and then an engineer actually says, yeah, you can build this. Is it kind of analogous to that?
Yeah, I would say it is similar to that. I mean, if I just describe it quickly, it would be there's this volume of data that we get from clients that has to be translated into tax return forms, right? And that's a function that you can learn as an intern, in the first few years that you're full time, and it's a thing that's exactly what they do. And then there's the application of the law, right? Because just because you have this data doesn't mean that it's deductible, or there's other things. There's law that you have to figure out. And then there's the strategy side of it, which is, well, how do we really want this to turn out? And I think one of the big lessons that our team has learned over the years is you have to figure out what the right answer is first, right? You have to understand where things stand as they are before you start. I don't want to necessarily use the word manipulating it, but changing it to try to get to the goal that you want, right? So there are, when you're doing tax returns, there's always flexibility. There's always dials and knobs that you can turn to get to where you want to be. But you have to start with like, well, where are we right now?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you jump ahead of that, then it just makes things super confusing.
That makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. You're working backwards from a result or from the goal, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's pretty much what you do every day
Well, and
with software, right?
starting off
Yeah.
with a foundation of facts,
Yeah.
and numbers that add up,
Right.
And then you can say, okay, I have all of these outputs. Now these become inputs into other paths.
That's right.
And then
What I think is interesting too, just listening to kind of like your business model and your hiring model, is the fact that you're bringing people in so early, where they get an opportunity to, number one, it's a try before you buy, right? Let's make sure everybody's comfortable working together, but they get an opportunity to absorb your process as well.
Sure.
Before they're even on board full time. I would imagine that translates to really good team cohesion, a really good culture in your organization, and probably some pretty creative thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons with both sides of this. So for us, I mean, and we're talking about recruiting, right? That's the big umbrella that we're under here.
Right.
There in our business, the unicorn is somebody who has like 7 to 10 years of experience and knows what they're doing, right? And it's probably true in a lot of industries. It's extremely difficult to hire people like that in our space. And if you want to build a firm and that's your strategy, it's going to be nearly impossible.
now, why is that? Because they just won't
They
leave
don't
where
move.
they are.
They're hard to find. They're hard to find when you need them. They don't want to live in St. Augustine. Trying to hire them elsewhere and train people remotely on the way that you do things has its own challenges.
Sure.
So all of those things are difficult. We've had a huge amount of success, and if you look at our team, the vast majority of them are people who, started off as interns and we hired full time, and then they've become, significant and important parts of the team. And so that's the path that I'm definitely going down right now.
Right,
That doesn't
yeah.
mean I'm ignoring, trying to recruit and find the unicorns. And if I can, great. And if they fit, perfect. And if they don't, then, fire early and often. Right.
Yeah.
So you got to, fit that in with your whole team dynamic. But I think the point that you're bringing up, John, is like, this isn't just us trying them out. It's also them trying us and the profession out.
Yeah.
Right. And so I always tell the interns, like, a successful internship can be one where you say, yes, I want to work here forever, and Tembo is the best thing ever. It could also be, I hate accounting and tax, and I really now know that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Right.
Yeah.
And,
Changing my major.
And that's a high five on the way out. Yeah.
we had
good
an
on you.
intern just like that 2 years ago. The nicest kid ever, right? This great guy, and just so good on the culture and the dynamic in the organization. But he came to me after 3 months and was like, dude, this is not for me.
This
Like,
is
I
not my
can't do it.
jam.
Yeah, I can't do it. So unsurprisingly, he's selling real estate now.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people who don't want to sit at a desk in the air conditioning for
Yeah, they
for
gotta
40
be out
hours
and
a
about.
week. A lot of people are more people centric. They have to, they want to see 100
Yeah.
strangers a day in the food service industry, or
Yeah.
we've had a lot of experience with younger hires that they had no concept of what a 40-hour work week really was.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be funny. I mean,
I know. I'm
just
laughing because
dragging
it's
in on
painful.
Wednesday, like, what are you doing? Like, dude, 3 days in a row, man. I was here 9 to 5 yesterday. It's like, well, you got 3 more to go, and then you get a check.
We haven't
So-
had that experience. I would say the ones that we've been fortunate, the interns that we've had have worked a lot. I mean, if anything, they're saying, can I work overtime? I mean, they're really
Motivated.
really into it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's good.
I
It's
will
been
tell
good.
you, just anecdotally, the biggest fee I've ever earned in my life as a headhunter
Yep.
was pulling a CPA from a big 4 CPA firm and placing him with a regional firm in San Diego. And it may have been the most excruciating headhunting experience of my life, because you're right, man. They don't move. They're very tough to reach out to. They're very tough to talk to, especially if you're not in the industry.
Yeah.
CPAs don't like to hear from headhunters. Like, you think
Right.
you don't want to hear from a recruiter? CPAs really don't want to hear from recruts. But
I can't imagine someone wanting to hear from them less than me, but I'm going to trust you on that one.
That's a tough one to get those industry vets to make that move. So yeah, that's thank you for confirming my bias. I appreciate that.
All right, you had a question about the Swahili?
I was yes. I mean,
All right.
Swahili. Like there's so many
For
themes
those of you
on your website.
just tuning in, not spoken very many places in St. Augustine,
Doesn't
Florida.
pop up
No.
often.
I haven't
No.
encountered it.
And the only and so when on Monday when we were doing the planning for this show and I looked at your website, I was like, what's with the Swahili? And the only reason I know about Swahili is that there was a local restaurant that I used to go to in Vegas that on the back of their menu they had words in Swahili, and I could never figure out why. Like it was just the most random thing. And I hadn't seen that until I went to your website. So please tell us about the Swahili connection.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that. It's definitely there's like I can give you a short answer and give you a longer answer.
Both.
Right. I'll give you the short answer first. So the short answer is that, our family has spent quite a bit of time in Africa. We really fell in love with Africa, South Africa in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was starting my own CPA firm, the last thing I thought that the world needed was another CPA firm named after its proprietor. And I wanted to create something that was bigger than me, right? Because I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the firm. I want it to be about what we do for entrepreneurs. And so I was looking for this name, that. And you guys have been through this exercise. It's hard.
It's
to find
really
a
hard.
name,
It's really hard.
right? Because
Yeah.
you gotta deal with URLs and you gotta deal with social media handles and
Yes.
trademarks and all the stuff,
Yes.
And so I actually have to give one of my clients and good friends, Brenda Bushell, a shout out because I spent some time talking with her about this, and she said, you guys like that time that you spent in Africa was so meaningful. It feels like it should be something related to that, right? And and the funny thing is I spent 2 or 3 months thinking about what the name would be, and I came up with lists and lists of like all kinds of translations into different African languages and whatnot, and none of them made sense. I mean, like really weird words that nobody in the U.S. would ever be able to resonate with. And I called a buddy of mine in Orlando and went to have drinks with him, and I was trying to explain all this to him, and we just started talking about. He's like, "Well, what experience did you really love the most?" And so we talked about elephants and these experiences that we had where we like spent time in fields with elephants, not on them or riding them or whatever, but just like with them. And it was mind blowing, like how gentle and familial, these animals were. They were just incredible. And he was like, "Well, what's the Swahili word for elephant?" And it was Tembo.
Nice.
And it was like one of those things. And I get back to my office the next day. I have an elephant sitting right next to my computer, another one here, one on a poster behind me, another one over here. It's been staring me in the face for months.
That's great.
And then finally it just kind of became the reality of it. So yeah, that's how we came to
awesome.
the name, and that's where the influence came from. And it's cool.
It's a great metaphor, like the way you describe the animal, the way the culture is at the company, the way you treat your customers, the way you treat your staff.
There was a lot of symbolism. If you go, I think it's on our Facebook page, but there's a lot of symbolism there about like the characteristics of elephants with tusks that get right to the point of the matter, and big ears for listening to your problems, and tough, thick skin, to deal with tough situations, and padded feet to tread lightly, and all of the symbolism associated with the elephant that I think matches up really nicely with the way that we like to do business.
That's great. So then you take just an extension of that is using Swahili words for stuff like learning to make the experience working at Tembo
Yeah, part of the culture.
A little bit not plain.
Yeah,
compared
something
to
fun
somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think also not overdoing it, right? Because I think there's also that kind of sensitivity side of things. Like, we're not trying to appropriate that culture. It's their culture. It's a beautiful thing. But it's still, this is how we're kind of making our culture wrap around that and respect it. And it's different, I think people say to me, you're not like any other CPA I've ever met. And, our firm is not like any other firm that they've worked for. As a matter of fact, going back to your question earlier about the interns, one of the downsides, when I was saying there's upsides and downsides, one of the downsides is that when you hire people right out of college, maybe they've worked at a fast food place or a retail place or something, right? But this is their first professional job. And so, they get this experience of working, I believe it's an incredible culture that we have. I've had people tell me that, right?
Right.
And so this is the new norm for them.
They're ruined.
They have
They're
no
ruined.
idea how good they have it sometimes, right?
Yep.
And so one of the nice things about hiring people who, if you can find the unicorns from time to time,
Right.
they then come in and say, oh my gosh, like you guys just don't even know what it's like out there, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm the same way, right? Because I got this job as a junior. I never went anywhere else.
Yep.
I mean, you know, I became a partner with Ken and Billy, and, you know, we did that for 17 years, and then I started Tembo. So I've like, other than those little experiences, I've never worked somewhere else.
It's and it's got to have its pros and its cons, right? It's like you never got broken by the system,
Right.
Right. You didn't learn a bunch of bad habits,
Right.
or
Well, my wife would probably disagree with that.
in accounting,
Don't
Right.
they always? Yeah.
but you know, but then there's that relative thing that is important. But maybe you got that in the tobacco fields, right? I mean, you got something to compare it to.
Yeah.
You have a frame of reference of
Right.
what you don't want in a career. But, you know, I've had people ask me about this before. My nephew got into computer science, and I think he's 26 now. But his first job was with kind of a smaller company in Jacksonville in the IT department. And then he's like, hey, I got a job at this big company. I'm all right, man. Let me know how it goes. And he's back with another small company now.
Right.
So I think it is good to see what it's like on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
And know some people are
Perspective.
suited. Some people like hundreds of cubicles
Yeah.
and cake on Friday in the break room. And I mean, Office Space is funny because it's accurate.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And some people, Peter didn't like it,
Yeah.
but everybody else did.
Yeah.
At least Milton did.
Poor Milton, that guy.
No, it's true.
All right, so I'm gonna table your self-imposed question until the very end.
Okay.
But I think the next place I'd like to go is we've got about 18 minutes left. Tell me about how COVID affected the company, and I don't mean like from a numbers perspective. I mean culturally, dispersing employees, and I kind of know some of the things that you've done, and I think they're pretty cool the way that you adapted. And did it affect your? I guess first of all, how did it affect it starting about a year ago or 15 months ago, and then maybe talk about today. If you want to hire somebody, are you affected by the employment and labor shortage? Just
Yeah. So if let me go back just a little bit
Sure.
to Africa.
of course.
And because it influences this question. So so the reason we went to Africa is because my sister moved there, right? And she was working for the Desmond Tutu Foundation in HIV research. And, when she moved there with her husband, my wife and I and our kids were maybe like 12 and 10 or something like that at the time.
Okay.
We just were like, wow. I mean, this is a huge opportunity, to be able to go somewhere, spend time, they knew the place and where to go, and we could do it all safely and all of that. So we have to go, right?
Yeah, once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Up to that point in time, I would categorize myself as falling into the bucket of like the typical CPA who has the insane tax seasons, and works 1 million hours, and clients are calling me. They're their first point of, I'm their first point of contact. And it's what most CPAs do.
It's the grind.
It's the
Yeah,
grind,
yeah.
right? But when you're going to go to Africa, you can't go for a week, right? It's too far,
yeah.
right? And so, you got to go for 3 or 4 weeks. And I can't, I'd never been away from the office for that long. And, it was a very conscious decision on our part to change the way that we did business, or that I did business with my clients, to create the room to be able to be away for 3 or 4 weeks, right? And when I say be away, it wasn't disengaged, right? It was just the ability to work from there, right? Which
Yep.
is huge,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
today that sounds a lot more common, than it was in 2012 or whenever this was. And it took me probably a solid year of very conscious work to kind of, train clients, if you will, to call the secretary instead of me, right? And let's figure out all these answers, and these are the people who are on your team, and this person can answer that question just as easily as I can, and if you need a copy of this return, call her, right? So all those kinds of things. And so it was a very conscious thing. And then we went, and it was great, and it worked, and I was able to work some from there, but have a lot of fun and spend time with the family and all that. And so we went back a bunch, right?
Sure, cool.
So we did it over and over again. So when we started Tembo, I knew you never know when you start a new business, right? I've been doing this for like 17, 20 years, whatever it was at the time. And still there's nervousness about going out on your own and doing it the way that you want to do it. And, yes, I have relationships with all these clients, but are they going to follow me? I don't know. There's no guarantees, right? So when we went into this, it was a very lightweight approach. And my wife and I also knew, like, we wanted to be able to travel and utilize this as an opportunity to be able to do things from wherever. So I set everything up, in the cloud, very lightweight. I mean, in the beginning, we didn't have an office. We were working out of my, bonus room, and people, we had a small staff, and they were working from home. And then, we ended up getting an office, and part of that was culture, like, how do we meet and how do we, create
central
culture.
location.
Yeah. So we already had all of that set up. We were already in a place where people could work from home or not, or work from the office, work from wherever. I've always had an attitude of, I don't really care if you work 40 hours a week. I just care if clients are happy. Like if you can get everything done that you're supposed to get done and clients are happy and we've, met or exceeded all their expectations, great. Did you do it in 30 hours? Fantastic. Did it take you 50? Sorry. Try to go faster. Like whatever it takes to get it done.
Right.
And so when COVID hit, there were two things that I think impacted us immediately. Number one, we were no longer working at the office, and most everybody was working there. We were maybe a third of us were working from wherever, and 2/3 of us were working for the office. And so now those 2/3 were working from home. We had some new people, and we've learned now after the fact too, that in some ways they kind of got lost in the shuffle,
Right.
There's a lady named Rose who, I don't know if Rose is listening, but Rose, was being trained, right? And then all of a sudden was working from home by herself with no safety net and, nobody to really ask questions to. And so that part I think was difficult. And then the other thing that happened was that there was crazy things happening in the government that were affecting small businesses, like PPP loans.
I forgot all about that.
Right?
Yeah. That was like 10 years ago, right?
Right, exactly. So, they're passing 800 pages of legislation that all affect tax, that all affect businesses' ability to get cash.
Surprise!
Yeah. And so, we went into this like 8-week just cram session of trying to figure out and understand what in the world was happening. And you'll remember, I mean, I sent a ton of emails out back then.
Yeah.
I don't send a lot of emails to clients, but back then I was sending tons of emails and writing lots of blog posts and building crazy calculators and trying to help people figure out what to do in this situation. And there was so much uncertainty. Businesses were wondering, like, am I even going to have a business? Am I going to be in business in 6 months? I don't know. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like. So all of that was, super, super, super challenging on top of all the normal stuff that we normally, had to do. I think the fact that we went into it very lightweight and all in the cloud and like we're heavy users of Slack, right? So that whole communication thing, that all worked, I think, really, really well.
Right.
And if anything, maybe in some ways made us even closer or at least able to communicate better using those channels. Definitely had a lot of clients that did not have that experience, right? Because they weren't prepared for that. And that part was really challenging. I think since then, we've had a lot of people come back to the office because I think they like the camaraderie of it. They want to be together. It's easier to train. I think, that one of the impacts of COVID is, in some ways, I certainly have lots of clients that find it difficult to hire new people. We haven't had as much of an issue with that. I do give a lot of credit to our culture for people like come to us, right? We kind of are a magnet for good people in some cases. And I love that, right? I mean, that's kind of what you want. And it takes a long time. We've been working on that for a long time and making sure that the people on our team are good people. Like we have no bad apples, like our team is all 100% good. And it hasn't always been that way, I mean, in the old firm, it wasn't that way and it was challenging.
I wouldn't.
Rose is in chat. She says hi.
Okay.
I
Hi,
wouldn't
Rose.
have made it through the
Sorry,
screening
Rose.
process.
Sorry.
Yeah, Rose just out in the ocean on
in
her
our
own.
in our world, we call that employer branding, and
Okay.
it's a very specific thing. So I think the best employer branding is the kind that isn't done with an exact blueprint, and it's just
Organic.
it's very organic. It just kind of permeates out from the business that you've built and
Yeah.
the people working there.
It's your values too, right?
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, what is it that you think is important?
But we've all been around a table, maybe having drinks, and and I'm thinking of like times in my 20s, where you meet up with some people you haven't seen in a while. Oh, my job sucks. And there's like one person like, yeah, we're actually doing some pretty cool stuff. Like, we fixed the ATM network when it went down last week, and
Yeah.
I found a $400,000 billing error, and got a promotion. So,
Right.
yeah, it's it definitely, your employees take that with you, and hopefully they share it. That's got to be at least one of the reasons.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Definitely think so.
You have a good social media manager. She's all right.
She is. She's awesome.
One of the things that you made me think of that was people not in hurricane zones don't understand how fast you got to get out of Dodge. Yeah. And I don't, tell me if this translates to you guys, but we had in 2015, we had an evacuation, and that was the kind of our first real live running of our contingency plan for everybody to be remote. We thought of it intentionally, like you did. We had things in the cloud. There's nothing critical here at this location. It's just phones and computers and electricity. And then in 2017, we did it again. And so it was just kind of like, I think I sent out an email that said, hey, don't come in tomorrow. Follow the hurricane protocol.
Yeah.
Coordinate coming in here and getting your crap over the next 24 hours. Make sure you don't run into anybody. And then our customers didn't know we evacuated. They didn't know that we had dispersed for COVID. So did you guys have some protocols in place from that, and were you able to take advantage of them?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and I think it actually came out of our experience in maybe 2007, 8, 9, somewhere in that range when we got hit back then.
Okay.
And at the time, we did not have a plan, and it was extremely stressful, and it wasn't as bad as Matthew. But that put us in a position of saying, okay, we need a plan for this. And so then everyone that came through after that, we had a plan, and it was actually extremely well documented. And
Yep.
Charlene, who works for me now, she ran that whole thing. There was a telephone tree, and people had checks, and some people had cash, and we knew what the plan was. I think
Nice.
it's translatable. It's funny. I've got a few clients that are in the security and risk management space. And when I was talking with one of them about, who needs what you sell. Mm-hmm. And she, her answer was like, way more companies than you would think. And the situation is like, you don't know you need it until you need it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then all of a sudden you need a plan. Right. And that's a big part of what they do, is to put that plan in place so that when that thing happens, you know what to do. And we know that from hurricanes, right? Because that's our experience. That's our world. But, yeah, I mean, for us, when the last time that we had the big threat, when we had this office, it's pretty funny. Like, we built the office to basically be able to spray it all out, right?
Yeah.
And we loaded up a box truck with all of the stuff that mattered. Everybody has laptops, and we got everything done. And then we were like, what are we gonna do with all these chairs? And I realized that in an office for 14 people, we had 37 chairs, and so we got climbing rope and literally strung the chairs from the rafters to get them up, 5 or 6 feet. And
Nice.
it worked like a champ.
Yeah, because you guys are in a zone that definitely floods.
Definitely floods. Yeah, I think we're at elevation like 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's Matthew was a surprise because the water, everyone expected the water to come from the ocean,
Right.
And it came from the intercoastal.
Exactly.
And no one I knew counted on that. But,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And like, there's I like you don't know you need it until you do. And it seems like having a good contingency plan like that is good, for anybody, especially if you don't think you would ever have to use it. Like, you're going to be caught the most off guard.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing now, some form of natural disaster in just about every part of our country. I can't
Yeah.
think of.
And man-made. I mean, and to some extent, in dealing with a lot of these security companies, it's the people threats, right?
Right.
That companies are having to prepare for, more and more.
Yeah, you're right. That landscape changed over the last 2 years.
Big time.
For sure, especially in larger cities.
Yep.
You have another question before my final question?
I just wanted to, not necessarily a question, but I just wanted to give some props because again, on the website, I was looking at your social business and the fact that a big part of what you do is giving back to the community and giving back to organizations. And I think that's awesome. It's something that a lot of companies like kind of hype and play up. And I see that it's a small part of kind of your presentation to the public, but how did that come about? Like was that always intentional, or was it something that evolved after a couple of years out on your own?
Well, I think that from the community perspective, that's something that my wife and I have been focused on. As a matter of fact, today was a huge day for us and the Tag Children's Museum because we had our official groundbreaking. We've been working on this project for 13 years. And,
Congratulations.
Today, that's where I came from.
I think when I met you, you were about to build it.
Right.
So what is it?
It's a children's museum,
it?
so it's a hands-on, kind of science center children's museum. It's at the shipyard complex over behind Target.
Okay.
And it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, go to tagmuseum.org and look, the plans are there, and there's a media kit and all of that. It's an amazing project that we've been working on a really long time, and it's the first cultural facility that's been built in Northeast Florida in 20 years.
Congratulations.
Yes.
That's huge.
Kind of crazy. Yeah. So, but that was kind of the first foray into like the making impact on the community. Back in 2015, or actually back in 2013, I founded a company with a client of mine that we then merged with another company in Dallas in 2015. The guy who was president of that company, he and I really hit it off. We brought in another guy named Sam, and the three of us kind of hatched this social business idea. It's there's some great books on it, but everybody's familiar pretty much with Tom's Shoes and the buy one give one model. So this one we do buy one nourish two. So the products that we sell then nourish somebody else.
Nice.
And it's made a huge impact. I mean, I think we're like 35 million servings or something.
I mean,
like that
it's
at this
incredible.
point.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's really incredible.
Yeah.
So
I love that space.
It's fantastic that you're doing that, and it's impactful because this isn't like we're going to send you some seeds so you can plant a garden or any of that. Like you're providing socks and glasses
Right.
and children's music. I mean,
Right.
kudos to you. So no question. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
That's cool. Thanks, man.
And draw some attention to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love that.
All you.
Well, yeah. So just if I can summarize a little bit, we've talked about the path to the CPA is if you want to do that, if you think it's something for you, try to get into a good firm with it as an intern. Try to get some experience with a couple of different types of firms just so you have a good frame of reference. And it's hard work. How much college? 6 years?
150 hours, so it's like 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
And then you got to sit for the CPA exam.
CPA exam is super tough, and they made it even harder than when I took it.
And you have to
Okay.
have like real world experience on top of just studying for the
You
test
do.
as well, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have so many hours in service, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think. I can't remember what the new rules are, but I think you're right.
And then it's good for people who like new challenges every day.
Yeah, and I would I would also tell people don't do it the way I did it. I graduated from undergrad, took a few months off, had my first child, my son, or
Okay.
actually my wife technically had him, in November of 1998. Started MBA school in January of 99.
Okay.
So new baby,
Whew.
MBA school, traveling. It was at UF, and still working full time.
Okay.
Did that in a year, and then took the CPA exam the next year, and then had another baby after that. And it was insane.
Okay.
Right. Don't
Yeah,
do it
don't
that
do it
way.
that
So then what you would do all over again is
Graduate
become
from
a
college.
CPA.
Yeah.
Chew your food.
Do your CPA. Right. Exactly. Get your hours. Do your CPA. Then have kids and the mortgage and the wife and the dog and all that.
It's
kind
exciting.
All right. Tell everybody how to get in touch with you and or Tembo if they want more information about your services and products.
Tembo CPAs with an S on the end.com.
Okay. Kaylee will drop that in the show notes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
For
We're on
sure.
Instagram, Kaylee's killing it on Instagram, Facebook, all those places.
Yep.
On the Insta. Just dropping
Actually,
it on the Insta.
I'm going to extend this for a minute because there's one thing I wanted you to touch on. Like, how far have you traveled in the last year, and how did you do it? And like you talked about working remotely in Africa, but one of the main things I wanted to talk about was the opportunity of doing something you love while working in the current environment.
So, I mean, this definitely comes out of that whole experience in Africa where we were very intentional about running our business that way. And when we started Tembo, we were very intentional about being able to do this from anywhere. And some friends of ours about 3 years ago bought an old Air Force bus, renovated it, and they've been living on it for 3 years. Very cool, very inspirational. So my wife last Thanksgiving was like, I'm buying a bus. And I'm like, we are not buying a bus. We do not need a bus, you know.
So you got a bus.
Like, yeah, so we got a bus in January, and it was it's like a 33 passenger limo bus, right? Like the party buses.
Okay.
Big though. I mean, it's 35 feet long. And so we got it in Colorado, drove it back here. It had been somewhat renovated already at that point, like all the seats were out of it, whatnot. We redid the whole kitchen and the bathroom and the living area and like the whole thing, and we turned it into this like really cool little apartment. And then in June we hit the road, and we drove from Florida all the way out to the Washington coast.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we hit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. We drove 7,000 miles. You know, obviously you guys now know for sure that I love entrepreneurs. So we spent a lot of time meeting entrepreneurs. That was a big part of what I wanted to do along the way. It's amazing because this country, like the fabric of this country is entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
I mean, the big businesses get all the headlines, but when you drive across this country, you don't see the big businesses.
Okay.
You see, you know, this brewery. We saw a lot of breweries. You know, these restaurants.
Yep.
You know, these little businesses. We had trouble with the bus in Branson and this motor coach company that had worked with all these, you know, I don't know, celebrities or stars or performers or whatever. But they were tiny, you know.
Yeah.
And the guys were so nice. You know, they were incredible. And then the same thing in Sioux Falls. You know, we had to go there to get another part, and it was just the nicest group of people and entrepreneurs, and we just had a blast with it. And this country is amazing.
Yes.
You know, it's huge, and it's so variable, you know. I mean, there's just so many different things that you can see, and all of the things that you think that you should see, like Yellowstone or whatever, those are great, but there's so much other stuff that's just amazing too. And so, yeah, we had a blast.
I got to ask you now, what's the best roadside attraction you guys hit? Like, what's the, like, most, I mean, there's the yarn. I mean, there's Carhenge.
We saw the Corn Palace.
Oh, in Mitchell. In Mitchell. Yes. Listen, never sleep on Mitchell. Okay. That's the most brilliant marketing ploy I've ever seen in my life. Go visit the Corn Palace. What is it? It's a gymnasium filled with corn cobs on the outside of the building. It's
right.
brilliant. It's brilliant. Sorry, man. I got really excited about that. You're the only other person I've ever met who's been there outside of my family.
Yeah. No, we loved it though. I don't know if I could say, you know, what my favorite thing was really just meeting the people and businesses, and I don't know, just like getting to know this country a bit better. It was awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, you reminded me of it because you guys took a lot of pictures and kind of documented the journey on your social media. So I would encourage people to go check that out.
Yeah, I mean, from a career perspective, you know, I worked all along the way. I mean, you know, it was nice in the afternoons. We were pretty much free because the East Coast was already done at that point.
Right.
The bus has killer internet, you know, so I spent a lot of money on that. And so, you know, you could work from anywhere and get it all done. And probably not satellite, but
cellular,
lots of cellular and boosters and all this kind of stuff.
Very
so
cool.
You can get a signal anywhere. One of the benefits of COVID is the fact that people are so much more willing and accepting of like Zoom calls and conference calls, and you know, it doesn't have to be a face-to-face meeting anymore. So
right.
It makes it a lot easier to do.
I agree.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, we'll end there, and just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in today with our special guest, Ben Platt. And until next week, we wish you happy recruiting.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Ben.
I got to find the outro. Here it is.
That's on you, man.
You're listening to RecruiterCast Live. Thanks for listening to RecruiterCast Live with your host, Dave Webb. Make sure to follow RecruiterCast on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram at RecruiterCast. Check out RecruiterCast on all major podcast platforms. Subscribe now.
RecruiterCast is brought to you by Brightmove, named the top talent management technology provider in HRO today. Learn more at brightmove.com.
Let's talk recruiting.